Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Elijah Parrish Hickson. We'll be going over Illidan from the WarCraft franchise. Spoilers for all things WarCraft.
Okay, so Illidan Stormrage is a night elf. Like almost all of the important night elves, he is incredibly old, and as such we recommend checking out our previous video on Warcraft's elves here and in the description below, because the race has been around for most of the world's history. Illidan is one of the most powerful and influential elves ever to have existed, arguably matched in importance only by his brother Malfurion Stormrage and Tyrande Whisperwind, a night elf priestess who was the key in a love triangle between the three of them, but who would eventually marry Malfurion over Illidan. To understand Illidan's story, we have to do a bit of world setup. Briefly, Azeroth, the planet on which most of the games take place, is home to a world soul, a creature that will eventually bloom into a titan, basically a god. Beings known as the Void Lords also exist and wish to corrupt all life in the cosmos, but are opposed by the Titans, who are significantly more powerful than the Void Lords. Because of this, the Void Lords seek out world souls, hoping to corrupt them before they grow into Titans, giving the Void Lords agents possessed of power on par with the Titans and thus a leg to stand on in their fight. Eventually, Sargeras, a Titan, learns of the Void Lord's plans and, in response, unites most demons in the WoWverse under his rule and launches the Burning Crusade, with the end goal of the crusade being the destruction of all life in reality, as he believes such a fate is better than corruption by the Void Lords, and that theoretically, even if all life is destroyed, life will eventually spring anew in the universe since it did so once before.
Enter Azeroth and the Night Elves. The Night Elves are the oldest race of elves in existence, and their society grew around the Well of Eternity, a massive lake of pure arcane magic, Azeroth's lifeblood, left over after suffering a massive wound thanks to the old gods who were agents of the Void Lords. For thousands of years, the Night Elf Empire grew and flourished on the Pangea-like supercontinent of Kalimdor. During this time of growth and plenty, Illidan, Malfurion, and Tyrande were born. The Night Elven society widely used both druidic nature magic and Well of Eternity-based arcane magic. Most elves are born with eyes that glow one of several colors, usually some form of blue. Illidan was born with eyes of gold. At the time, it was believed that golden eyes marked those so born as bearers of a great destiny, though much later it would be learned that golden eyes actually represented a natural affinity for druidic magic. Which is ironic because despite Illidan's supposed natural gift for the art, he never really gelled with nature magic, despite studying alongside his brother in the druidic arts. Instead, Illidan found himself drawn to arcane magic, and in this practice he excelled, becoming an incredibly powerful mage, just as Malfurion became a powerful druid and Tyrande became a powerful priestess.
At some point during the height of Night Elven society, the Night Elven Queen was contacted by the Burning Legion, and in return for promises of great power, invited them into Azeroth, using the Well of Eternity to construct a portal allowing demons to flood the planet. When her treachery was exposed, Malfurion, who had already been working with the Elven Resistance to fight the demons, convinced Illidan, who had been a loyal supporter of the Queen, to join them in battling the Burning Legion. The war raged on, and eventually Illidan would be promoted first to personal battle mage of the Resistance's leader, and then to the leader of the Moon Guard, an elite cadre of mages that had sided with the Resistance early on. Despite his power, Illidan was not a man of good judgment, and he slowly grew obsessed with defeating the Burning Legion and driving them from his home at any cost. To that end, rather than employing his Moon Guard as battle support, artillery, or any number of other strategies, he routinely had them channel all of their power through him, allowing him to cut through the demons with a level of power and devastation that would not have been possible otherwise. The primary problem with this tactic was that gifting all of their power to Illidan left the Moon Guard open to attack and defenseless against any demon who made it past Illidan. And as such, Moon Guard losses grew steeply after Illidan was put in charge of the organization. Despite this, Illidan's tactics were generally met with praise, as the Moon Guard's former leader had been tactically inept, meaning that even with their mounting losses, the Moon Guard was more effective and deadly than it had been before Illidan's stint as their leader.
As previously mentioned, though brilliant, Illidan was not terribly wise. Throughout his life, he was prone to both thinking and acting rashly, particularly when he was trying to woo and impress Tyrande. When eventually Tyrande chose Malfurion over Illidan, it drove a small but noticeable wedge between them, and Illidan threw himself more deeply into the fight against the demons. Resultantly, when the Resistance's then current leader died, Illidan came up with a new plan. Always adaptable and willing to pursue any avenue in pursuit of victory, one of the reasons he was so effective as the leader of the Moon Guard, Illidan vanished from the Resistance's ranks and feigned loyalty to the Queen and the demons, even coming up with a plan to steal the Dragon Soul, which was basically a draconic version of Tolkien's The One Ring, from the dragon who possessed it. He claimed the plan was to give it to the demons, allowing them to strengthen the portal such that Sargeras himself could come to Azeroth and finish the fight, when in reality he planned to use the Dragon Soul to shut down the portal entirely. Sargeras was so impressed with this plan that he gave Illidan a gift. He burnt out Illidan's eyes, replacing them with orbs of fell flame that allowed Illidan to constantly see all manner of magical auras, also branding him with fell tattoos that presumably enhanced Illidan's power. At some point, presumably before this, Illidan slew a powerful demon named Azeroth, taking the demon's warglaives for use as Illidan's signature weapons ever after. With the glaives, tattoos, and his eyes taken by Sargeras, Illidan now bore the appearance most of us are familiar with, which would remain mostly unchanged in the millennia to come. Illidan's plan was successful. He stole the Dragon Soul, and working with Malfurion, they managed to destroy the portal, cutting off the Burning Legion's only access point to Azeroth. However, in the process, they triggered what would come to be known as the Sundering. The Pangea-like continent was sundered into several smaller landmasses, scattered across a vast ocean with a raging maelstrom where the Well of Eternity once stood, as it had exploded.
In the aftermath, the Night Elves settled on one of these continents and outlawed the practice of arcane magic. It had been discovered that it was the Night Elves' unrestrained practice of the arcane that had drawn the Burning Legion to their world, and as such, arcane magic was deemed illegal. However, Illidan and others argued that arcane magic was also one of the greatest weapons that they had against the Burning Legion, with Illidan specifically warning that the Burning Legion would be back. In his time feigning loyalty to the Burning Legion's cause, Illidan had discovered the full scope of the Burning Legion's might. They had an army vast in number, they had scoured numerous worlds before, and would continue to wipe clean any world they found. What's more, any demon slain simply had its soul banished to the Nether, where it would eventually reform. Their army was endless and their power vast. They would return, and Illidan knew that the world would have to be ready. The Night Elves would not discover until much later that the explosion of the Well of Eternity had spread the arcane across the globe, whereas before the Night Elves had been the only ones capable of wielding arcane magic as it was drawn directly from the well. As such, the Night Elves were secure in their decree outlawing arcane magic, figuring no one could use it anyway. However, before its destruction, Illidan had secured several vials of the Well of Eternity's waters, which he placed into a pre-existing lake in the Night Elves' new home, creating a second well. Believing Illidan to be an unrepentant and dangerous renegade addicted to and possibly maddened by arcane magic, Malfurion and Tyrande ordered him imprisoned for his crimes. There, Illidan languished for about 10,000 years, his only companion being his jailers and the occasional visit by his brother, which usually involved arguments.
After 10,000 years of imprisonment against Malfurion's counsel, and indeed having to slay some of his jailers to accomplish the task, Tyrande freed Illidan from confinement when the Burning Legion struck Azeroth once more. Eager both to prove he was not corrupted by either the arcane or the demons, Illidan threw himself into the fight with his characteristic zeal. The demons were corrupting a nearby forest, and Illidan led an expedition to root out the demonic infestation. When he found the artifact responsible for the corruption, instead of destroying it, he consumed its power, transforming into a demon. Though still largely remaining himself, his change granted him great power, and he easily routed the demonic forces in the region. However, when Malfurion and Tyrande, now leaders of the Night Elves, discovered what Illidan had become, he was banished, though not imprisoned considering his service to his people. Subsequently, the Burning Legion was banished from Azeroth once more, though again at great cost. Afterwards, one of the demon leaders contacted Illidan, offering him a return to the Burning Legion's ranks in return for destroying the then-current Lich King, a former servant of the Legion that had grown too powerful to control. Considering Illidan's later actions and his general single-minded determination to see the Burning Legion eradicated entirely, it can be assumed that his acceptance of this mission was made in an effort to keep the Legion's suspicions off of him for as long as possible, while also eradicating another enemy to most of Azeroth, but it's not 100% clear in-game.
Regardless of his motivations, Illidan knew he couldn't face the might of the Lich King alone, and so he called in some old favors from the Naga, former Night Elves transformed by time and circumstance, which we go into deeper detail on in our Elf video. Technically, they did not answer his call because they cared about old debts, but because their old god masters willed it, sensing that Illidan's actions would lead to war, which was good for the old gods. Motivations aside, Illidan and his Naga battled the servants of the Lich King. The battle culminated in a duel between Illidan and Arthas, the man who would eventually become the next Lich King, which Illidan lost. Throughout these events, Maeve, Illidan's head jailer, pursued him across his travels, with Illidan either battling or fleeing from her as circumstances required. Briefly, he allied with Malfurion and Tyrande again to battle the Lich King's forces. Despite Maeve's attempts to hunt him down, Illidan was allowed to leave peacefully on the condition that he never threatened the Night Elf's safety again. In response, Illidan fled through a portal to the broken world of Outland, a world ruled by demons, taking his Naga with him. There, he amassed power, making alliances with the non-demonic forces of Outland, and eventually conquering most of the planet, playing it off as interdemon quarreling when his would-be demon overlord questioned him.
In truth, however, Illidan started taking his first major steps toward making war against the Burning Legion. His allies in tow, Illidan formed the Illidari. Specifically, he trained other elves of multiple denominations to become demon hunters, putting them through rituals to grant them powers similar to his own. When he was ready, Illidan began leading his Illidari in strikes against Burning Legion-controlled worlds, culling their leaders and bases of operations, and in at least one instance, nearly destroying a planet so that the otherwise immortal demons would have nothing worth reclaiming. As his actions were no longer hidden from the Legion's notice, the demons manipulated the people of Azeroth into invading Outland. Once there, they began warring against the demons and the Illidari, believing at least in part that the two factions were essentially one and the same. These events culminated in Illidan's death. In his obsession with the destruction of the Legion, he eventually alienated some of his allies, who then worked together with the heroes of Azeroth, the players, and Maeve, still hunting Illidan, to slay him. Illidan's most elite demon hunters returned from stealing a dimensional master key, a crystal that would allow the wielder to travel to any Burning Legion-controlled world, just in time to see their master fall, and were routed in turn. By this point, Illidan's soul had become as immortal as any demon. He could not, in truth, die. So, Maeve had his body returned to her prison and his soul trapped along with it, his captured elite hunters imprisoned alongside him. The Burning Legion invaded Azeroth a third time some years later. The demons broke into Maeve's prison and stole Illidan's body, ripping his soul from it and casting it first to the Nether and then into a Hell dimension, planning to use his body as an avatar for Sargeras, the Titan Lord of the Legion. Through the efforts of Azeroth's heroes, again the players, and with the help of a magic space snowflake named Zira, Illidan's soul was returned to his body, thwarting his attempted possession by Sargeras. Afterward, he aided the players in their battle against the Burning Legion.
Eventually, he and Zira were brought face to face. Zira informed Illidan that she believed him to be a child of prophecy, one destined to end the threat of the Burning Legion once and for all, but that his scars and choices had weakened him, made him lesser than he had potential to be. She offered to cleanse him, grant him the power that should have been his. Illidan refused, proclaiming that his scars had made him what he was and that he would never again trade his freedom for more power. Instead, he would fight the Legion his way. When Zira attempted to force the issue, he broke free of her control and, to the astonishment of all assembled, killed her then and there. He then denounced the very idea of a chosen one, saying that no single person could defeat the Legion, that it would take every last one of them to succeed where those like Zira had failed for millennia. Thereafter, Illidan, the heroes of Azeroth, and others led a charge on the Burning Legion's homeworld. There they discovered that the Legion's immortality was powered by that planet's world soul, which had been corrupted and tortured by Sargeras. Freeing the rest of the Titans, who had been weakened and imprisoned by Sargeras, the Titans, heroes, and Illidan slew the planet's world soul, ending the immortality of the Burning Legion and presumably Illidan. The other Titans then drew Sargeras to them, presumably imprisoning him, though not before he wounded Azeroth deeply. Rather than leave with the rest, Illidan stayed behind, echoing words he'd once used as a biting insult to his jailer, Maeve. The hunter is nothing without the hunt. The last we see of Illidan is a shot of him standing before the form of Sargeras, being pulled to the rest of the Titans. Outdated and thus questionably reliable information, combined with his parting words, have led many to believe he stands guard as Sargeras' jailer. Or perhaps he stood to battle Sargeras alongside the other Titans. Or perhaps something else happened entirely. For the time being, Illidan's final fate is unknown. Before staying to face Sargeras, however, Illidan entrusted 3 final messages with the player. The first 2 were for Malfurion and Tyrande, through which he tried to bury the hatchet after the fact. The last was to the player, who Illidan recognized as a fellow defender of Azeroth, committed to the world's protection, and asked the player to stay the course. The Burning Legion is inferred to be largely defeated, but new dangers would eventually rise to menace the world, and Illidan trusted only those like the player to stand in Azeroth's defense.
And that's basically the story of Illidan, Master Demon Hunter of the WoWverse. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like Elijah Paris Hickson and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been
True Masters and Morons, signing off.